Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today a detailed forecast update coming your way. We've got a lot to be talking about today. We're going to start things off with a forecast for Western Australia where a powerful cold front is expected to blast through this morning into this afternoon. We're also going to be talking about some cold fronts expected for South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania, and we've also got to go up to far North Queensland and talk about some very heavy rainfall that is now expected up there. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video while you're at it. Your support is greatly appreciated. So like I said, starting things off over in Western Australia right now, as the radar loop loads in with the satellite imagery overlaid, you can see no real showers or rain activity to be talking about across the southwest. Not this morning, however, but we've already got some strong wind gusts being reported. Augusta with winds of 54 kilometres an hour gusting to 70, and ships with gale force wind gusts outside of Esperance at this time. So for those in exposed locations and even through the Perth metro area, I know for a fact that it's been quite windy this morning. Expect some strong to locally damaging wind gusts, and they'll be continuing throughout the course of today as well. We've also got the problem of temperatures. They're quite low, especially across the interior parts of the wheat belt, where some of these strong wind gusts are also being reported out at Southern Cross, where it's 6 degrees right there, with some strong winds as well out in Southern Cross. So the wind chills are going to be significantly lower than the actual temperature, so make sure you do rug up so you are comfortable in today's weather. So we're going to be talking about the rainfall. This is the most important factor of the forecast. You can see the cold front starting to build up south of the southwestern Capes here, and it's going to be creeping further north throughout the course of today before merging with a stronger low pressure system connected to a trough sometime this afternoon into the early hours of this evening. And that means that the rain is going to start for the southwest Capes by around 2 or 3 p.m, extending into the Perth metro area at around 7 or 8 p.m, and it could be locally heavy in locations. We're expecting thunderstorms as well, especially around the southwest Capes, and for locations around Bunbury and Busselton, thunderstorms are expected throughout the course of today, and some very heavy showers are also possible with the crossing of this low pressure system sometime later tonight into early tomorrow morning. These heavy showers and thunderstorms are expected to extend as far north as Perth. However, the heavy rain should be isolated to locations south of Mandurah. There is still the chance of some isolated heavy showers tonight and into very early tomorrow morning. The showers and storms then going in further inland, keeping itself to the south coastal region, south of Katanning and Narrogin, that sort of area. But some good rainfall accumulations are expected, which we'll touch on in just a few minutes. We're talking about some showers and storms as well for the Perth metro area later tonight and then into early tomorrow morning. The showers will continue through Tuesday morning and into later Tuesday afternoon, when the rainfall should finally clear out of Perth at around 3 or 4 p.m. Still, there will be a couple of showers around. These showers and rainfall extending into the wheat belt as well, and then even into the Gascoyne and the Murchison. As far north as Meekatharra, expecting a couple of drops of rainfall by tomorrow afternoon and evening. A couple of millimetres expected out in the goldfields as well for a lot of locations, but the bulk of the rainfall will be around the coast south of Perth down towards the southwest Capes and the south coastal regions between Albany and Esperance. That's where the bulk of the rainfall will be, which we will just touch on in a few moments. So as Tuesday rolls into Wednesday, we're expecting the rainfall to clear out of the southwest of Western Australia before moving in towards the goldfields and the south interior districts as it heads towards South Australia, which leads us nicely into the next part of the video, which will be a discussion on the cold fronts that are expected to go for South Australia, but a little bit more on that later on. The rainfall should be continuing, however, for the coastal regions of the West Australian southwest through Wednesday, Thursday, and just for the foreseeable future, basically. Unfortunately, the unpleasant weather seems to be here to stay. In terms of peak rainfall accumulations for the next 3 days, which includes the passage of the front tonight and into tomorrow morning, peak rainfall accumulations will be up to 60 millimetres outside of Collie and Harvey, south of Mandurah and outside of Bunbury. The rainfall will be hit and miss through the wheat belt, but at the further south you get down towards Katanning or Mount Barker, the rainfall will be significant. There are places expecting 50 millimetres over the course of Monday and Tuesday and even into Wednesday as well. The south coast expecting a few drops of rainfall as well, up towards 50 millimetres outside of Albany, but again, as you get further inland, the rainfall will become a little bit more hit and miss there. Even extending as far out as Esperance, a few good drops, but like I said, as you get further inland, the rainfall does become a lot more unpredictable. Places in the goldfields and the northern parts of the wheat belt expecting a few good drops as well, especially out towards Mount Magnet, but then the rainfall does ease off once you get past Paynes Find and Mount Magnet, but still a couple of good drops expected out there too. And then along the coastline, Perth expecting a pretty ordinary 20 millimetres. That's not much compared to the Bureau of Meteorology's up to 40 millimetres on the forecast now, but parts on the northern coast as well, where the cold front is actually expected to brush up against the coastline, expecting a good 30 to 40 millimetres there. Jurien Bay expecting 45. Geraldton as well, not missing out on the rainfall, 40 millimetres up there, and good drops of rainfall extending as far north as Shark Bay and Denham. Even Carnarvon not expected to miss out on the action tonight and into tomorrow. They're expecting a couple of good drops up there as well. But in Perth, the rainfall could be very hit and miss. The extreme southern suburbs around Mandurah are pretty much guaranteed to get a solid 20 millimetres tonight and into early tomorrow morning. I reckon the rainfall will be pretty hit and miss in the Perth metro area until tomorrow afternoon, when the northern suburbs are expecting a good couple of showers through there. But I reckon the central parts of the Perth suburbs down towards the southern suburbs expecting a little bit of hit and miss rainfall. No more than 20 millimetres expected there, which is not much in comparison to the Bureau of Meteorology's forecast, but I do still reckon that there'll be one or two places in the Perth metro area that pick up to 50 millimetres of rainfall. Whether that's in the hills or in the southern suburbs, we will just have to wait and see how the radar loop evolves here. It's a very interesting cold front to be forecasting. Now, we're not done with Western Australia. Believe it or not, there's more rainfall on the cards. Peak winter, it's just going to be throwing rainfall at us, but we're going to have to go forward into the forecast, expecting these showers to continue from the onshore flows through Saturday and Sunday right up in towards the later parts of next weekend, when another cold front is expected to brush up against the southwest Sunday night, but it will not be a strong one at all. Just a few showers are expected from this one, maybe some strong wind gusts as well. But then come next Monday, we're expecting showers and storms to start developing along a trough line offshore from Western Australia, and this is going to equate to some pretty heavy rainfall throughout Monday, Tuesday, and then into Wednesday. It just looks like we're going to be getting a moisture stream from the northern parts of the Indian Ocean, coinciding with a cold front moving through on Tuesday and Wednesday next week. That's going to equate to some pretty heavy rainfall accumulations, and as you can see here, a couple of days of solid rainfall is going to equate to 10-day rainfall accumulations above 100 millimetres for locations along the southwest coastline. Perth over the next 10 days expecting 100 millimetres. Like I said, 20 of that falling through the cold front that's going to be coming through tonight, and then another 80 coming from Sunday to Wednesday next week. So a couple of days of drier weather and then some a wet end to July basically now on the cards, and that's going to equate to some very good rainfall accumulations. Peak accumulations on the West Australian coastline up to 150 millimetres outside of what looks to be Australind north of Bunbury. Some good rainfall as well along the south coastal regions, and just a bit of an Easter egg here on the forecast models, 230 millimetres over the next 10 days offshore from Geograph Bay. So that's very interesting from the eastern Alberta. I don't expect this to materialise at all. However, this very heavy rainfall and widespread heavy rainfall as well is reciprocated between the forecast models. Both the Axis G3 and the GFS forecast have basically identical weather systems coming through on their forecasts next Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, the 29th, 30th and 31st of July respectively. So this is something that we are going to have to keep a very close eye on, because it looks like next week we're going to be seeing some of our wettest winter rainfall for winter season 2024. I did say in the April forecast that it was going to be a violent winter, and this is exactly the violent types of weather systems that we would expect for said violent winter. We're going to have to keep a very close eye on this weather system, but heads up for the viewers, between the line of Jurien Bay down to Esperance, some very good rainfall is expected to close out July, and that includes the agricultural districts as well. So farmers, make sure you are watching this forecast very closely, because it could be a very good one for you guys. In terms of rainfall accumulations around the remainder of Western Australia into the goldfields, the majority of the rainfall is going to be coming through tomorrow out of this sort of widespread hokey pokey 10 to 15 to 20 millimetres in places. The Murchison is going to be very hit and miss in rainfall, kind of stopping as you get up towards Murchison and Gascoyne Junction, not expecting much rainfall out there. Rainfall also going to be pretty hit and miss as you get towards the goldfields in the southern interior out towards Coglabiddy. The rainfall will be quite light out there, but still expecting a few locations to be up 15 to 20 millimetres, just more rainfall out there, which could be causing a few problems for the road network out there. So if you're a grey nomad planning on travelling through the goldfields or the southern parts of the Murchison, I'd recommend heading a bit further north and a bit further out into the desert just to avoid the rainfall and a potentially unpleasant camping experience over the next 48 hours. Just a heads up for people out there. That basically does it for Western Australia, though. If I have left anything unanswered, please do let me know in the comment section down below. I look forward to responding to all of them throughout the course of today. It's time to jump parts of the nation right now and head over to the southern corners. We've got quite a bit to be talking about, all things considered, on what looks to be a pretty empty rainfall map here for Victoria, South Australia and Tasmania. We're going to start things off here with the rainfall forecast and have a look at what's going to be coming through over the next 10 days. We do have that cold front that's impacting Western Australia tonight, going to be coming through sometime on Wednesday. It's not going to be anything crazy. A couple of light showers expected in its passage on South Australia between Ceduna down towards the Eyre Peninsula and Port Lincoln. A couple of light showers also on the forecast for Adelaide Adelaide Wednesday night into Thursday morning. The rainfall will pick up for Tasmania on Thursday morning as this cold front does blow through, expecting some strong winds as well in places up towards 70 kilometres an hour there. So some strong gusts on the northern side of the island of Tasmania are expected. Through the Bass Strait, maybe 20 millimetres on Thursday for the west coast. Isolated falls up to 40 millimetres expected, and a few centimetres of snow also possible in the higher elevations of Tasmania. Also some heavy rainfall expected in its wake as a cold front builds, and this one does look to be quite strong as it impacts Tasmania Thursday night. We could be seeing some damaging winds there, some wet snow as well across the high peaks of Tasmania, and into Victoria as well. Can't be neglecting them Wednesday night and into Thursday night, expecting a couple of showers, especially in the western half of the state. We'll get to New South Wales in just a hot second, but this rainfall here is going to slowly add up, and with more rainfall coming through on Friday for parts of Tasmania, the Victorian coastline and into South Australia, expecting all in all a pretty wet end to the week. The rainfall should slowly ease off on Saturday and Sunday, with exception to the west coast, but it's going to be replaced by a high pressure system, and that means what rainfall is remaining is going to fall as snow for elevations as low as 900 metres in Victoria and 800 metres in Tasmania for some places. It's going to be a very cold night Monday morning to start off the last week of July. As this high pressure system builds, we're expecting conditions to be very cold and temperatures to plummet to up to 6 degrees below average. So there's just a heads up for the agricultural communities through New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania. We are expecting some very cold mornings Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday to round out July under the influence of a powerful high pressure system, which we will just touch on in just a second. But in terms of peak rainfall accumulations from all of this weather, most of it coming through in the next 5 to 6 days. It should be all done by around Saturday afternoon. The peak of the rainfall coming through Thursday night and Friday night, especially for the west coast of Tasmania. In terms of the wettest places in South Australia, Kangaroo Island expecting up towards 50 millimetres, Adelaide expecting between 15 and 30 millimetres from these weather systems. Also some good rainfall for the Eyre Peninsula, especially along the coastline, up to 10 to 15 millimetres there, but the remainder of South Australia really missing out. It's going to be the southeastern corner around Mount Gambier and Robe expecting up towards 30 or 40 millimetres. Into Victoria, the western coast expecting some good falls as well, up to 40 millimetres, most of it falling as steady, consistent rainfall. The highlands as well through Victoria expecting some good falls too. Melbourne is going to be a hit and miss 25 millimetres, and the remainder of Victoria really missing out on the rainfall. Unfortunately, the west coast of Tasmania, historically the wettest parts of any weather system that blows through the southeastern corner of Australia, up towards 70 or 80 millimetres. The majority of that is going to be falling Thursday and Friday. Some also good rainfall across the northern parts, but it's going to be, as usual, the southeastern corner around Hobart and Port Arthur, expecting the least of rainfall. Only a couple of millimetres expected there as well, so that is unfortunate for them, really missing out on some good rainfall, because this does look like a pretty good week of rainfall. 100 millimetres falling for some locations in Tasmania in a week. That is some good rainfall for this time of the year. Now, just to round off this forecast here after the rainfall accumulation, we'll take a look at snowfall. There are some good accumulations expected on the high peaks in New South Wales, 20 centimetres around Thredbo and about 15 centimetres around Mount Buller and Mount Hotham, or about 10 to 15 centimetres expected there. So some good accumulations expected across Victoria and New South Wales. It's really not going to be making it far north though. Areas that sometimes receive snow and weather systems like this, such as the Barrington Tops or the hills outside of Katoomba, not expecting any snow either. And then across Tasmania as well, some very good snowfall expected along the high peaks of the western coast and around Ben Lomond National Park. Some good snowfall is expected out there too. In terms of temperatures as well, this is the next thing that I wanted to talk about, is this high pressure system towards the end of the month. It's going to be building by around Sunday afternoon. That means from Sunday afternoon into Sunday evening, the conditions are going to be freezing across New South Wales and Victoria. You can see overnight minimum as low as -8 or -9 degrees in the high peaks of New South Wales. Very, very cold indeed, so make sure you do rug up Monday night. It's not going to be much better as well on Tuesday as well. Temperatures expected to be far below zero for these locations. Very widespread below 0 degree nights across New South Wales and Victoria. A big frost day expected Monday and Tuesday, with temperatures struggling to rise above double digits for some of these locations as well. Wednesday just a little bit warmer, however still freezing cold across Tasmania, Victoria and even into the northern parts of New South Wales. The high pressure system keeping temperatures very cool across southern parts of Queensland as well. So So just a heads up, it is going to be a bitterly cold end to July in terms of overnight minima for parts of New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania. Yep. We'll just play this through one more time. You can also see some showers and storms firing up Thursday night into early Friday morning for the northern parts of New South Wales in the wake of these, or in the leeway of these fronts, where they're going to be dragging in some pretty warm air through Thursday and Friday. So that means that the convective conditions across the northern parts of New South Wales could favour what resembles spring to summer storm activity. So just a heads up there, we did talk about it in yesterday's video update, that we could be talking about a few tropical-like thunderstorms up in the northern parts of New South Wales. This is very interesting. That leads us very nicely into the next part of our video up in tropical far north Queensland. Too, we've got to be talking about some of the heavy rainfall that is expected over the next 10 days. You can see here on the 10-day rainfall accumulation reciprocated between the other forecast models as well, mind you, up to 160 millimetres expected outside of Innisfail and Tully on the high peaks around the Cassowary coast. Also some good rainfall expected up into the Daintree as well. Now, when is this rainfall going to be falling? Because it does look like a fine and sunny day up there throughout the course of today. There could be a few showers streaming in from about this evening and into early tomorrow morning. The rainfall will start to pick up across tomorrow into tomorrow afternoon, expecting some heavier falls up there. We could be seeing up towards 20 millimetres outside of Innisfail. Better rainfall is expected on Wednesday, again, as this rainfall really does pick up for these locations. Again, another 20 to 30 millimetres expected for some of the higher elevations in the far north parts of Queensland. And although this doesn't look like heavy rainfall, I mean, this is only 2 to 3 millimetres an hour, but when you have 2 to 3 millimetres an hour falling consistently over 72 hours, you do the math, it really does add up. And that's sort of what we're going to be having is light to moderate showers streaming in along the coastline. You know exactly what I'm going to be talking about here. Very typical for this time of the year. It happens all year round, basically, for this part of tropical far north Queensland. They don't really have an off-season for rainfall around some of these locations outside of Innisfail, so it is, like I said, typical weather to be having for this time of the year. But like I said, the rainfall will be adding up 20 to 30 millimetres a day over the course of 2 or 3 days. You're looking at between 50 to 100 millimetres, and with the rainfall continuing through Thursday and Friday evening before a little bit of a reprieve Friday afternoon by the looks of things, it does look like the rainfall, like I said, it will be really adding up. This weekend as well, looking pretty wet as well. It's going to be a pretty wet end to July, to be honest, up in far north Queensland. It's just going to be topping up those rivers and dams with rainfall before it looks like it does ease off a little bit to the later parts of next week. In fact, it looks like it really picks up towards the end of July, Tuesday and Wednesday. That's not what the forecast said just a couple of hours ago, so we've had a big shift there. That's interesting. But again, I think this just might be a bit of a model fluke a long way out. We're going to have to wait and see, and I'll have more information on this in tomorrow's weather update. But in terms of peak rainfall accumulations along the coastline, expecting some very healthy rainfall totals. Like I said, up to 160 millimetres expected outside of Innisfail. Innisfail itself expecting up to 60 millimetres. Tully expecting 60 as well. Cairns expecting between 10 and 20 millimetres. I think their rainfall will be a lot more hit and miss up there. Only a couple of millimetres expected to fall over the next 7 days. And up into the Daintree as well, some good rainfall up to 100 millimetres expected there. Inland locations such as Mount Carbine really not expecting anything in the way of decent rainfall. Atherton expecting a very hit and miss 20 millimetres. Ravenshoe as well, a very hit and miss 20 millimetres. We're just going to have to wait and see what exactly happens here with the forecast, because also about half of the rainfall that's been presented on this screen does fall in the later part of the forecast. So the forecast does become, as you know, a little bit more uncertain. Now, in terms of a drought monitoring update up here, up in far north Queensland, they've had a pretty dry July, to be honest, for some of these locations, and it looks like those drought conditions have started to creep in, and this rainfall is just going to be quenching the thirst that this part of far north Queensland has over the coming couple of, or it has built up over the last couple of weeks, but the rainfall should do a good job at quenching that thirst by the end of July. So again, we'll keep a very close eye on this forecast here. Soil moisture anomalies still very much above average across quite a lot of far north Queensland. It's just the pockets around Innisfail and Tully and Babinda that are a bit drier than normal, about 10 to 20% drier than normal, but still soil moisture values up there very much wet, and it does look like a lot of the rainfall that could be falling will just result into runoff and flow into the rivers, and we could be seeing some minor to moderate flooding from this weather event. Again, it's just a waiting and seeing sort of game here. It's a very hard forecast to be making. As we know, tropical rainfall is very much hit and miss. On that note, that basically does it for this weather update. It's been a long one, so thank you so much for sticking to me to this point. If you have enjoyed it, or if you've got any feedback, please do let me know in the comment section down below. Please consider leaving a like on the video as well. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching to this point, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.